We are in for a fantastic 40 minutes talking about the stories of women in football and people that have been on the Women in Football Leadership course, which is a absolutely fantastic course. If you haven't done it already, a show of hands, anyone in the room done the leadership course? Yes, a couple. I can see it. Fantastic. It is amazing. I've now completed levels 1, 2, 3, and 4. And to be honest, I'm really sad that it's over and there's not any more courses that I can do because it is absolutely fantastic. I love it. I love it. Thank you so much. I will be signing up. I'll be on the first course. It's absolutely fantastic. And we're going to be speaking to some of the alumni today who have really seen the impact of that course in their careers. I'm Gemma Frith. I'm going to be your host for today. I'm the presenter-producer at Wolverhampton Wanderers Football Club, and I've worked in football now for 7 years. Thank you, Jackie. Yeah, a good cheer for Wolves there. And the leadership course for me really inspired me and gave me a boost of confidence to really drive to be the change that I want to see in my working environment. And we are joined by 3 alumni of the course today who have had a similar takeaway with their experiences. So I would love to introduce you to them all. We are joined today by Nicola Comley, who is the Senior Marketing Manager of Global Football at New Balance, Vivienne Long, who is the Hospitality Manager at Luton Town Football Club, and Jenny Mitton, who is the Managing Partner and Women's Sport Lead at M&C Saatchi Sports and Entertainment. So thank you all so much for being here. And I must also as well give a mention to Barclays, who are supporting today's session. And they are Women in Football's lead partner and have been now for over 10 years. And they also provide bursary places on the Women in Football Leadership course to ensure that there is representation from women from underrepresented backgrounds on the course as well. So it's fantastic from them for their incredible work and support of the leadership course as well. But to get us started, rather than me asking you lots of questions about your job, I'm going to let you all tell your story, and storytelling is a big part of the leadership course for those who have been on it. So I'd like to individually take the moment to go through your story. So Nicola, if it's okay, I'll start with you, no pressure, but please do tell us a little bit about your journey.
Yeah, happy to. Can everyone hear me through this mic?
Hopefully, yes.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Lovely to be here. So I'll kick off my story with, I grew up in a Manchester City household. I know there's a lot of Manchester City people about. I had no choice. That was who I was supporting, and that was a done deal through generations of families. But football was a part of my upbringing, but it certainly was not what I thought my career would be in. You know, at the time, it was my thing for my dad and my brother, and I was kind of like, I just want to watch my shows and do my own thing. But it's incredible now when I think back to that, and now, you know, I've had a 11.5-year career in football. I studied marketing and languages at university. After university, I moved to London. I was actually in the social enterprise charity sector. And I started working in social media, and at that time, this was like pre-Instagram. This was like, everyone just had Facebook, and there was poking, and that was where we were at.
Poking, wow.
Back in the early days. And I happened to work for a charity that was really invested in social media and how it could connect communities. And it was really lucky for me because it kind of started my career really early in that, because I took an interest in it and moved into working on the social accounts for the charity. And then I actually quit everything at the age of 28 to go do a bit of traveling. Felt like I hadn't got that out of my system yet. And I came back to Manchester and stumbled across what was then Warrior Football. For the kit supplier geeks in the room, Warrior made Liverpool Football Club's kits. That was the entry into football. But New Balance, the brand that I worked for, owned Warrior. And after a couple of years, New Balance decided that it wanted to actually be the brand in football. So had an incredible experience of launching a brand into the football industry, which doesn't come around really very often at all. Wonderful opportunity to work on marketing campaigns with clubs like Liverpool, Porto, Celtic, and now work with the athletes like Bukayo Saka, Raheem Sterling, Michelle Cooper, a female athlete in the US as well. So I built my way up from social media like manager through to now I lead the global marketing team. So I work on strategy, trying to build brand connection with young people across the world and hopefully get their interest in the athletes that we work with and the products that we make and sell. So that's me.
So at what point in that journey did you join the leadership course, and what impact did that have in you sort of launching your career and making changes from there?
Yeah, I had I'd been a couple of years into leading a team. So I currently manage 6 people in the team, and I'd been a couple of years in, and I knew I liked being a manager. But I also knew the difference between, there was a difference between being a manager of people and being a leader. And I had really strong ambitions to be a leader. You know, I kind of felt at that time I was hitting my sort of professional groove and becoming really confident in what I was doing and my own skills. And I really wanted to, in the future, build more of a leadership role for myself within New Balance, but also within the football industry. And the course came along at a great moment because it was really helpful in defining that difference between management and leadership and what the steps you need to take to achieve that, to be seen as a leader, to help influence younger people around you, help them on their journeys. And so that was maybe about a couple of years ago. And since, I've actually gone back and been a tutor on the course now since then. So it's been amazing for me, not just what I learned through the course, but this network of women. In particular, I have really enjoyed feeling part of that. You know, there's a lot of women that work at New Balance, which is incredible, but speaking to women outside of the company you work for, having those honest conversations that you sometimes can't have with people you work with, has been really valuable to me. So that's kind of the impact it's had.
And you speak about going back and being a tutor on the course now. How important is it for you to continue to inspire that next generation and also mentor younger people as well?
Yeah, it's such a huge part of what football can mean to, what it means to me. I didn't really, when I was younger, I had no idea that football could provide a career. I never played football. I didn't come through to football from playing the game. I didn't have any idea this could be a career. And like I said, kind of stumbled into it. And I'm really passionate about kind of letting young people know that the football industry is so much more than just playing the game. There's so many incredible opportunities career-wise that revolve around the game. And so supporting other young women to take their steps in the industry is something that I get a lot out of. And I've had that previously when I first came into New Balance. There were women who were leaders who helped me, and I just think continuing to pay that forward is something that I feel really strongly about because I experienced it when I was a bit younger as well.
And that's what I love so much about Women in Football and the leadership course, is that it does really feel like a really supportive environment. As was said in the panel earlier today, this is the safest I think it was Yvonne actually said that this is the safest environment to get to know different people and have those conversations, and that's lovely. So thank you very much, Nicola. Vivienne, I'll come on to you if that's okay. If you could share with us your journey and your story.
Yes, I didn't have any intention of working in football originally. I used to be the girl in the playground playing football with the boys. I loved watching football, playing football. And then my mum was from a single-parent household, so my goal was I wanted to be the first person to go to university. But I remember I just really loved football, wanted to do something in football. But I went to high school, and probably like a lot of girls, I had a friendship group, and they kind of like, why are you playing football with the boys? That's not what girls do. And I think I listened to their opinions more and took a step back and said, well, maybe I should do what the girls do, focused on my studies and decided I'd go down the uni route. Went to university, but I started via A-levels, and I was really set I was going to be a PE teacher. I don't know why I wanted to be a PE teacher. It's probably because I couldn't play football. So I decided I was going to do PE. So I did all my A-levels, went through them to be a PE teacher. Got to the end, picked for university, looked at it and thought, I don't know why I'm doing this. I don't want to be a PE teacher. What have I done for 2 years? What do I do now? And so I flicked through a prospectus and I was like, I don't know what to do. I found HR and PR and Googled them and said, what's the best job? What earns the most? Fell onto PR, Googled it, saw jobs in the city and thought, that looks fun. I'd been watching loads of Sex in the City. I was like, it looks like a really fun career. I'm going to go down that route. So while I was at uni, I was working at a local supermarket, and then alongside that in the store, you could be a PR ambassador. So alongside uni, doing my degree in PR, I then was working in a supermarket, and then you got little bits of PR and gave me work experience, and we were coming up to sport relief. So I called up my local football team, Luton Town, and was like, I don't really know what we can do, but I'd love some coverage. Can you come down, just bring a couple of players? And I was quite persistent. And in the end, the commercial manager agreed. He came down, brought a few players down, took some photos and went, I'm only here because of you. We don't normally do this. You were really persistent but polite. What's your end game? What are your career goals? And I was like, well, I want a real job. I'm going to go into PR. I'm going to go to London. This is just my stopgap. And then he said, right, but what about football? And I laughed at him a little bit because I was looking at him and I was like, in my head, football was the players on the pitch, the coaching staff behind, but all male. I didn't know anything behind the scenes, and anyone who would have been wouldn't have looked like me, and the manager talking to me didn't look like me. And he said, I think you should consider a placement year. And I was like, no, I don't want a placement year. I want to go to uni. I want a proper job. I don't think football's a real job. And he said, I could change your mind. It will look good on your CV. Come and do a placement year with us. So finally agreed, took on a placement year. And for anyone that knows Luton Town, when I joined, we were in the conference. And what he didn't tell me was how hard a job it was going to be. But I am naturally quite an introvert, and it was a really rewarding job because it forced me to cold call, to talk, to speak to people. We tried to slot in little pieces I could do PR, and really had fun with it. But then got to the end and went, right, I'm ready to go back to uni, do my last year and get my real job. And then my manager spoke to me again and said, look, do you want some money in your final year? I'd like to work with us on match days. So that's fine, but I've still got my goal. I'm still going off. And so I stayed with them on match days, and then I graduated and I got my job in Shoreditch. Went to the city, I got my PR job, loved it for 6 months, hated commuting. Wasn't especially what I thought it was going to be. I think I'd built the dream up in my head and had fallen down. It wasn't what I thought. So then I moved to marketing in a local company, enjoyed myself. But I remember talking to someone and they were asking me about my jobs, how I've been through uni, what did I do? And I was explaining everything. And then when I was talking about the football club, they stopped me and they were like, you love football, don't you? Like, you're really passionate. And I was like, oh no, it was a stopgap, I enjoyed it. And they're like, no, when you've described everything else, you were serious. When you spoke about that football break, your face lit up and you're passionate. And I was like, maybe I've missed something. So I went back to my old manager and said, if there was any opportunity to come back, I'd love to be thought about. And then, so he found an opportunity, took me back, and I went back and we were League Two. And I don't want to take any credit, but then we kept going promotion after promotion. So we went from League Two and then we went to the Championship. And I was working in the commercial department under my manager. And then he left the company, we got a new manager in, and then COVID hit. And so like everyone, I think COVID stopped a lot of careers, put a gap, and so my development slowed down. But then I went on the leadership course during COVID, which I was excited for, but also found quite daunting because I didn't know what to expect. And it was the most honest, raw and supportive group I think I've ever been a part of. And I think sometimes you're in your own little bubble in sport and think that no one's like you. And then you're hearing stories and you go, oh, actually, there's people who think the same as me and having the same difficulties, same issues. And then it really helped me develop my career because I had to make a personal development plan and where I want to be, what I want to do. And so I came off furlough and went back to work, and I surprised myself and my manager, and I kind of put down my plan and said, I know my career has stopped, the whole world has stopped to understand that, but here is what I want to be. This is the timescale I want to do it in. Can we make that happen? And I took him aback, and it all went really well. So we made a timescale, and then I was promoted to hospitality manager at the end of the 22-23 season, and then we got promoted to the Premier League. So it was a brand new job and a brand new role, but I've just realised that there are jobs in football. It is a proper job.
Firstly, congratulations on your promotion, and well done for being brave enough as well to make that career change after you'd gone to university, because that's really difficult. You know, a lot of people would stay in what they'd studied in and work towards, and to actually go towards something that makes you happy and you're passionate about is huge, on itself. You said about how when you first were approached by the commercial manager, you said that you felt like everybody wouldn't. It was all male and people wouldn't look like you. He didn't look like you. I know that you're also on the EDI panel at Luton. Have you been surprised? Have you seen a change? Is that change still happening? What sort of progress have you seen off the pitch?
Yeah, no, definitely. On the pitch, I think we are completely fully covered. And then off the pitch, where we are in Luton, we're a very diverse town. And as we go along, the people behind the scenes look like the town now, and you're just much more relatable and just shared life experiences. But it's embracing and looking like everyone that's around you, and everyone brings their own value. So we're there slowly.
Amazing. And also with your setting out your goals as clearly as you did to achieve them, what advice would you give to anybody in the room that perhaps knows where they want to get to? And it's really hard to not only write it down and make that plan yourself, but also to vocalise it to your manager. What advice would you give to people in the room of the impact of doing that?
Yeah, I think there's never a wrong answer. I think I always assumed you had to, because someone had to tell you that you were good enough. Whereas after the course, I learnt that I know that I'm good enough. So it's just voicing it. And I think that helped because you were seen more as a leader because you've taken the initiative, you've spoken upon yourself. And so I'd just say go for it. Just write it down and just stamp your feet on the floor, plant them, and just say it.
Amazing. And we'll speak a little bit towards the end about the impact of the course. And for anyone that hasn't done it, you will want to do it by the end of this session, because everyone that I've spoken to that's been on it, we are all so passionate about the impact that it's had, and it really is a spectacular thing. So, Jenny, I will come to you though. Please do share with us your story.
So I knew from quite an early age I definitely wanted to work in football. And I remember my first moment vividly. I've been a Forest fan forever. We used to go to the games with my brother and my granddad. And I remember in Careers Day when I was aged 11, and they sort of threw the question out to the room, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I sat there and I scanned the room and I was like, right, Forest. What roles have I got there? I was like, okay, I've not seen any women. I've seen one woman. I know one woman at Forest. So I put my hand up and I said, I want to be Stuart Pearce's wife. And at the time, everyone, I think the class laughed, and I was like, yeah, but she's a woman, and I see her at Forest every weekend. She always goes down to the ground. She's in the stand. She sits in the Trent end. And I remember for years and years, we always laughed about it at the Christmas dinner table, and I think it was probably only about 5 years ago, we all sat there and went, isn't that entirely tragic that as a young girl, you thought you wanted to be a wag before wags were even a thing, because that was the only role model? So I didn't get to be my wag. Actually, Vivienne, I followed the route that you did, watched Sex and the City. I was like, PR, that looks fun. I like a lunch. And I ended up in PR and comms, which I absolutely loved and adored. And I think you're right, it gives you a sense of hustle and sales. It's a brilliant career to start out in. And then through my role, I was working at a PR agency who also were part of all agency groups. And some of the agencies we were working with were sponsorship agencies. And I quickly got on my radar Synergy, which the brilliant Lisa Parfitt from WIF was one of the leaders at the time. And I was like, wow, they're doing incredible work. I had no idea these kind of agencies existed in my PR bubble. So I took a punt and went for a role there. And I remember a brilliant guy called Dominic interviewed me, and he looked at my CV and was like, you've not done any sport. I was like, yeah, but bear with, I've got some great ideas. And I think I pitched some bonkers ideas involving animals and golf, which at the time were great. And he took a punt on me, and I moved into Synergy, and I was there for 4 glorious years, and then moved to MC Saatchi Sport and Entertainment, and I haven't looked back. It's given me an incredible foundation. I get to now work with Barclays, which was probably a dream client back in the day when I was watching the Barclays Premier League with my team Forest, my dad's team Liverpool, because it's a Scouser, and it is what I loved and consumed. And now, the best bit of my job is that seeing the growth of the women's game, and obviously then getting to work with Barclays to support not only the elite level, but also the ecosystem that's fundamentally going to change what women's football looks like in this space. So that's my kind of journey from wanting to be a wag, which is quite tragic, through to actually getting to work with, I guess, the best clients at one of the best agencies.
Brilliant. And I think that shows just how far we've come, that now there are so many young girls who have got an absolute plethora of people that they can look up to and inspire, that they're seeing on their TV screens, that they're hearing about, that they're reading about, whether that's players on the pitch, whether that's coaches, whether it's behind the scenes. And that's just fantastic and great to see. I know that you made that transition from men's football to now focusing on women's football and women's sport. How did you find that transition? Was it a major shift? Do you notice a lot of differences working with women's sport now, or how did you find that?
Oh, it's huge. I think I started out, I did quite a lot of rugby in my career, and I'd often go to sort of rugby dinners, and they would literally be at the rugby writers' dinner, 3 women in the room, and this was only about 8 years ago. And then, I started working in football as well with Premier League clubs, and again, you'd be the single woman. So I think the big shift for me was 2017. From a wider sport perspective, it was that Women's World Cup cricket final at Lords. And that was when we looked at the audience, and suddenly they looked different. They were behaving different. They were buying coffee, not beer. career, and suddenly brands and other organisations woke up and thought, hang on, I think these guys are new and I think we can sell to them. This is a really huge opportunity. And then from that moment, we spent the majority of our time actually working with brands like NatWest and O2 at the time in cricket and rugby, putting together business cases to show them the opportunity of this incredible new audience that was growing at scale, hadn't been in sport before, and fundamentally, because they swayed younger and more female, had more disposable income and often were the purchase decision makers in the household, so we knew they had huge amounts of potential. And then I think the real change, we were very lucky, we won the Barclays account a few years ago, and then obviously coming into football again after having a bit of a break, the shift was absolutely incredible. I mean, events like this didn't exist. These organisations, the connections in the group, it's so, so important. And it's gone from being two people in a room who look like you and you're sort of desperately across trying to eyeball them, where today we're all in the room together and we're hearing incredible stories about women who are pushing boundaries and changing what the game looks like.
It's amazing. And I know also you're on the UNICEF UK Sports Board as well, so you're doing work even outside of your main role. Tell us a little bit about that.
Oh, it's incredible. I was very lucky to be, it's so funny, when I did the interview for it, I think I just wanged on about women's sport, and I was like, oh God, I'm not sure that's their focus, but I just said to them, you know, you're an organisation who does incredible work, and you need to fundraise, and I really genuinely believe this audience has huge commercial potential. All your partnerships, or male-led partnerships, I feel like you're missing a whole audience here, which, whilst at the moment is quite small, down the line has huge potential. So we're working with them, sitting with an incredible board team who are all volunteers to try and find their sort of first women's sport partnership. There are a number of conversations ongoing, and you're probably aware of all their work they do across the globe, whether it's disasters, whether it's vaccines. They have incredible mum and baby programs in the UK, and make sure where probably the government isn't plugging the gap, they're giving sort of new mothers that really vital support. So it's really special to be with, but with all charities, there's lots of hurdles to go through, so it is taking some time, but a huge learning experience. And the fact that UNICEF can see, I guess, the potential of the women's sport audience says a lot, because ultimately they have to raise funds to make all the great work they do happen.
We're seeing fantastic progress, and long may it continue. So thank you for your work in it as well. We'll speak a little bit more generally now about the Women in Football leadership course and the impact that it's had for you. Nicola, I'll come back to you. Was there for you one big takeaway, that something that perhaps even has stayed on your mind to now, something that really sort of impacted on you?
Yeah, I think I did the levels 3 and 4, so I kind of skipped the intro level.
You should go back and do it now. It's very good.
I could definitely use it again. I think there was so much across the 2 days, but what I really, really loved and left a mark on me was the coaching sessions. So after the actual day, the two-day course, there's a number of coaching sessions, group coaching sessions, that were done over Teams. And it was 3 of the women from the course, and then one of the senior coaches from the course. And it was so interesting because I manage people on a day-to-day basis, and as a manager, sometimes I always say, you're always a work in progress, right? Some days you have really good days, and you're like, I nailed that discussion, I was a good manager, I did everything right. And then some days you're like, that was really bad, I reacted really badly there, and I wish I could redo that. But every day is a new day. And going through the coaching, it just like really made me think a lot about being coached myself on a problem that I had, which was a great experience, getting an external viewpoint and getting lots of different sort of guidance, but also supporting some younger women who were being coached and trying to not rush in and solve problems for them, because, you know, you really feel like, I've been there, I can do that, like, I know the answer. But actually step back and really develop your own coaching skills, and remember that sometimes your role isn't to fix every problem, not in the day-to-day management, not in the coaching experiences you can provide to other people. Sometimes it's literally to listen and ask questions, and that was really valuable, and I definitely took that back into my day-to-day management of my team. And I think that's probably been one of the bigger impacts of helping make me a better coach, probably a better listener. And overall, just less trying to fix everything. Like, I don't have to be the one that fixes things. Like, it's valuable for people around me to be able to fix things for themselves. And investing that time, allowing them the time to do that, is really important to them as well. So I think that was one of the bigger things for me.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you as well. I think it took, for me to be coached, for me to really see the value of listening and asking questions. I am the fixer friend. I'm the one that will be like, I know what you should do. You should call them and you should say this. And actually giving the people the opportunity to listen and ask them questions, people can go on that journey themselves. And that was something that was really powerful. So very much agree with that. Vivienne, how about you? What was the sort of big takeaway for you?
One of my big ones was just it's okay to be yourself. Because I think when you work in sport, there's obviously a lot of men around and there's a lot of way that they manage and how they might deal with situations, and sometimes they're the loudest in the room. And it was just teaching that I don't have to be the loudest in the room to be a manager, to be a leader. I can be myself and I can lead a different way. And there are just different routes that you can take. And I always used to believe that the loudest person in the room was the most senior and you had to listen to them, whereas now I'm looking back going, maybe there's another approach, and it just made me see that I can do it my way, which is really good.
Absolutely, yeah, no, I really like that, that's great. And Jenny, what point in your career actually did you take the leadership course? I'm not sure we've spoken about that.
So mine was, I was a director level, and actually it came in the most incredible point, because during the year period after the course, we had some huge changes in our business in terms of the leadership teams, and the coaching element was really key for me because our coaching took place afterwards. And I think when it took place, I had it with the brilliant Ebru, and I remember coming onto the screen with the team, and I was like, okay, we've had some quite big changes. I couldn't think of a better time for this coaching to take place. And, you know, the session was brilliant because the team were like, well, why do you think you've been put in that position? Do you think if your senior leadership didn't think you could do that role, you would be there? And I was like, no, you just needed that reaffirming, someone to reaffirm, actually, you know what you're doing. It's a confidence piece, because I think as women, sometimes we can doubt ourselves, you know, especially as we've talked about, whether it's having role models in the industry, role models in your business. I've generally always had male bosses, and suddenly when you're in charge, then suddenly it's a lot to take on. So that for me was really important. But I think for the course, I did 2, 3, and 4 as well. But I can see every level being absolutely valuable. And even, you know, when I got to the course, I did think, when I looked at everyone in the room, it's a real mix of levels, and I was like, will I learn? Because I'm quite old now, I've been doing this a long time. And I learned so much, not only from the incredible coaching team, but also for the incredible women in the room. Yeah. So it came at there's always going to be a best time, but I felt like someone plonked me in there. It was actually my wonderful client, Christos at Barclays, who picked up the phone to me and said, would you like to go on the course? We'd love to fund the place for you. How incredible is that?
Amazing.
That happened, and then a year later, I had to apply everything I'd learned. So it was brilliant timing.
Yeah, Barclays do an incredible job of supporting the course and providing those bursary places as well. So do consider reaching out to them or speaking to your line manager, see if you can get yourself on the course, because it is really, really special. I'd like to take some questions from the audience. I want to make sure we've got some time. It can be anything about the course. It can be about the fantastic careers that women have had here, or anything you want a piece of advice. Anyone's got any questions, please raise your hands. Yes, down the front. I don't know if you can shout. We've got a microphone. We've got a microphone. We'll wait. Sorry, no pressure. You don't need to run. Just down the front here. Yeah, thank you.
Hello.
Hello.
So it's my first time to Women in Football.
Welcome.
Thank you. So I've come through 2 different sectors. One being a mother, South Asian mother. My daughter playing football for Forest. She's only 14, but also as an active well-being officer for South Asian women. Mm-hmm. In both cases, I find, especially in football, we come across a lot of barriers in different sectors, as you know. One of them being the kit that's available, they may have the kit, but it's not being able to show the legs or the arms. It's something that restricts a lot of people participating in football as a sport itself that we've come across. And also having someone to represent, so visually being on marketing perspective or somewhere they can see it to believe it. Yeah. So there's a lot of talent out there. There's a lot of girls, like my daughter being one of them, who really wants to pursue it as a career, but she finds it a very lonely journey where she's going through at the current, because she doesn't just represent Asian but also being a Muslim. And I just wanted to know if there's something that going forward, Women in Football, you've considered in implementing it as a marketing level, but also in kits and wear as well.
No, absolutely, a very, very important point. I don't know if Nicola, from that kit perspective, if there's anything that you can speak on from what you've heard with New Balance. Is that something that's come up in conversation, or something that still needs a bit of work?
Yeah, 100%. You know, with the football industry has changed so much since I first started working in it, when I came into it 11.5 years ago. We were like that time we weren't really talking in great depth about things like what colour shorts can women wear, which now is like, for me, these conversations 100% should be happening when we're designing, when we're developing kits. Now, absolutely, we think about the female players and the female team, not just the men's team. They're not the only priority. Had a meeting about, you know, we work so far out on kits, so we're working on 25, 26 kits, right? And they're already designed. That's how far in ahead they're designed. And in the very first sort of planning discussion about it, it was not just about how will we present these on the men's team. Like, that's completely changed, which is really positive. I still think there's a long way to go. You pointed out very much, it's not just about what's right for women. There's so many different women who have different needs dependent on religion, on culture. There's still a lot to do. I think we're seeing breakthroughs in certain spaces. Certain brands are pushing to be part of that and to consider it more. I think there's still a journey to be had. So, but I do think, I know from New Balance's perspective, we absolutely want to make sure that we're inclusive and we're providing kits, boots that suit everybody. And that's you know, one of our ambitions to do that. But I think, yeah, it needs a bit more time. I think it will come, and you know, hopefully, when your daughter's still on her journey. Certainly, I think things are better from when I was a little girl, I'll put it that way, and was probably just wearing really baggy football kits, and you know, when I was forced to wear one at the time. But yeah, no, I think it's a lot better now, but I think there's a way to go.
Yeah, we're still on that journey. And in terms of the changing face of football as well, Vivienne, we spoke about that, how that's changed behind the scenes, and perhaps is different to what you expected. Why is equality, diversity and inclusion behind the scenes, and that visibility, as you said, being able to see it, to believe it's so important?
Well, I think if I'd have seen more people that looked like me, I'd have known that there were jobs for me, because I was only looking at the men on the pitch, the men on the coaching side. I didn't know about all the areas behind. And it's just also about feeling comfortable when you get into the room with someone that you can relate to and like share experiences. I mean, it sounds silly, but even just down to like different hairstyles, like how do they do their hairstyle for a professional event? How do I do it? And it's just having someone that you can talk to.
It is really important. I hope that goes some way to answer your question and show that we're still very much on that journey, but it's a very, very important point. So thank you for raising it.
There's two things I saw this
week,
actually. I
please
thought
do,
I'd just add, which was really exciting. One was Sweaty Betty, I think it was last week, launched a new campaign with a brilliant advocate for women's Muslim football, which is Lipinessa, and she's produced the first hijab that you can wear in sport that's available. I know it's Sweaty Betty, so price-wise it's not always everyone's option, but that's brilliant because we're starting to see kit show up in other sports brands as well. And then there was also a really important report from, I think, the Equalities Commission, and they had a whole report around the health and sort of physical barriers into women's sport. It's brilliant if anyone gets a chance to read it. Has a ton of recommendations, and one of those, they actually wrote to all the manufacturers, they wrote to stockists like Sports Direct and went, Sports Direct, why are you not selling girls' kit? It's an absolute disgrace. You know, this is half the population, you're not providing kit for them. And it's really interesting because a lot of the answers weren't satisfactory, and they acknowledged that. So they're looking to create a task force. So I think that'll be really interesting because obviously once you get government level, you know, intervention, we do start to see change. So it'll be really interesting to see where that goes. But they have said a task force needs to be in place, so fingers crossed.
Brilliant. No, thank you very much for adding that, Jenny. That's fantastic. Time for one more question? Yes, question here. That'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you. Really enjoyed the stories, by the way. They're very, very enlightening. I run a tech and digital company in sport, and like a lot of employers in this sector, we struggle to hire women into the business. We have under 20% representation in the business, which is nothing to be proud of. And I'm not looking for all the answers today, but I'd be curious as to whether or not any of the panel have any observations on what, particularly tech companies, but I guess it goes beyond that, some of the missteps that they make in trying to diversify their recruitment practices and so on, and any tips we might take to change things would be greatly appreciated.
Okay, anyone would like to take that in particular?
I'll have a go.
Yeah.
Well, firstly, I think you being at a place like this is really important. So engaging with women's networks, it's something that, when you're advertising roles, not looking in the traditional spaces of tech potentially that you might think it would mostly be a male audience, like thinking outside of the box and thinking where a variety of people would look at the different roles available. I think people knowing about jobs is half the battle. Like, I still have a lot of conversations with young people today, both male and female, that have no clue about the range of roles available in sport. And they don't necessarily know there's any option outside of, I could be a professional footballer or I could be a coach. So in sport, I think there's also that challenge of making young people see the wide variety of opportunities and engaging with, I guess, universities and different things like that. We have an internship program now, which I think has been amazing from our company, where we will have a number of interns join us every year, and they can take a different job role. So we've got one in the marketing team, might be one in sports marketing, there's one in product. And it's brilliant for us as well, because we're engaging with young people on a day-to-day basis who can teach us quite a lot about marketing in particular. But it then opens some of the eyes of what might be available. So potentially universities as one source. Obviously, university is a certain group of people, but you want to make sure it's available outside of that as well. So I would just say think outside the box a little bit in terms of where you go to find people, because there might be spaces that feel that a lot of women don't really go to when they're considering a career or a new job.
And I'll add to that, if I can, just quickly before we close, that I think it's about, there are a lot of barriers that women will face. We've probably seen it in football, and I'm sure it's the same in tech, where there's a lot of barriers that will stop them to even getting to the university stage, to even getting to the point of applying for your role. And the more you can do as a company to become an ally at those earlier stages, to encourage women into tech, to encourage women into your space, I think is really important. I'd also say speak to that 20% that you do have at the company. Speak to them, see what their experiences are of working in your company, in your industry, and actually what barriers might there be to sort of maintaining that female staff. And you might find that comes organically, that if you sort of create a really positive space for the women that you already have there, they'll be reaching out to their networks and bringing people in, and perhaps want to be their mentors themselves. So perhaps even look internally as well. But no, thank you, Nicola. That's some fantastic advice there as well. And thank you for your question. It's great to see you here and tackling it front on. So I appreciate that. Thank you. But unfortunately, we have run out of time, so I will have to wrap it up there, but thank you all so much for being here today, asking some great questions, and thank you to our panellists. Let's hear it one more time for them. Thank you very much. Thank you. Next, there is a short coffee break, some networking. If anyone has any headshot appointments, they will be outside as well, so please make your way through to the atrium, and we've got about 10 minutes until the next session starts, back in here at 12:10 p.m. Thank you very much.